Welcome everyone to Already Cancelled. I am Peter, that is Connor, and we are going to talk about Star Trek The Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 3. It's called Man of the People. So full spoilers for the episode as always. And do you like Deanna Troi love interest episodes? Do you like old age makeup? Because this episode's got a treat for you.
Oh boy.
Oh, it's got it all. It's got it all.
Oh yeah. If that's what you're into, you're in for a treat.
Oh dear. Yeah, I mean, we were expecting a bit of a stinker with this. It didn't sound that promising when we read what it was going to be.
It delivered.
It did deliver, yes. The premise of this is that they're going to some peace talks, and they've got like a peace talk specialist, an ambassador, which I feel like we've had this set up for at least 5 episodes up until this point. There's been a few of these by now.
Deanna's probably fallen in love with about 4 of them.
But he comes on with what everyone presumes is this man's mother. More on that later. But the man's presumed...
Does he claim that it's his mother? I think he might do.
Maybe he does at the start, yeah, I can't remember. But immediately, Deanna's there with Picard to welcome him on board, and immediately this crazy old woman just says, "You think he's attracted to you? Stay away from him, you hear?" And she gets all pointy and crazy. And there's a few examples of this throughout the episode where she barks at Diana for giving him the eyes, even though they were talking a little bit, but she's like, "You are seducing him with your eyes, you little slut." Like that's like the attitude she has.
Pretty much.
It's it's very, very aggressive. And then the old woman croaks. And Troi offers to help the ambassador with this his species, which are kind of empaths, but they're only empaths with their own kind. They can't be empathetic with anyone else. So she offers to help with this ritual, this funeral style ritual, and turns out it's actually malicious. He's doing this thing that he preys on he sort of like siphons off all of his negative emotions and feelings and everything else into like a vessel, and it turns them old. So this woman who just died wasn't actually his mother. She is actually quite young, but aged quite rapidly.
In her 30s, as we learn.
Yeah. And Deanna is eventually going to start getting old as well. However, before that, I would describe the episode very much a horny red kryptonite episode, where Deanna Troi starts acting horny, but out of character, aggressive, bitchy, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I will give it the mildest amount of credit.
Oh god.
In that, at this point of the episode, I assumed that it was like a possession episode, like a body snatch sort of thing, where whatever had been inside the old woman had like transferred into, and technically that's kind of true in a way, but I was more thinking it was like, she died and took possession of Troy's body sort of thing.
Which is kind of what Picard jumps to. He's like, did she have a virus that spread to Troi? That's why it's happening to her. Yeah,
which and I mean it's not quite that. It's not that far removed, because it's kind of this outside influence that was also affecting that woman and is affected it. So it's there mostly, but it was just different enough that it wasn't exactly what I predicted.
Yeah, so we get some scenes where Troi obviously comes on really strongly to this ambassador, and she wasn't before she was just being nice, and there was a bit of a flirtation, but it was much more in a civil way that she usually does with her love interests. After this transfer thing happens, she like very heavily comes on to him, is like dropping some double entendres, kind of like getting close to him and giving him the eyes. When he sort of says, "No, I have to do ambassador things, you have to leave, I'm sorry," she basically just like catches a glance at the first young like cadet who's on board that she sees, this young blonde guy, and it cuts to like Riker's like been doing some work with her at her quarters, and we've seen like an example of that earlier on, and he comes over to continue this work, and when he comes in, like she's dressed in this really sultry dress, and it's pretty cold, I'll just say that.
And Riker's like, "Oh, hello."
I don't know what I did to deserve these nipples, but I'm not going to complain.
She's like, "Come on in." He's like, "Don't mind if I do."
And then this young guy's like leaving. He's like, "Thank you, Counselor Troi. I'll be."
Yeah, and Riker's like, okay. I see.
and the dessert, apparently, then, okay. But he's very professional, he sits down, and he's like, oh, let's get on with this. And Troy's like, are you jealous, Riker? Are you upset? He's like, no, we're good. Let's get on with the work. And he actually does. He never comes, there's not even a hint of him. Like, he's obviously a little surprised to see this guy when he first sees him, but there's not a hint that he's like letting it bother him or it's like going to impede their work or anyway.
It would be very hypocritical of Riker to be jealous, given the amount of women we've seen him sleep with, or at least it is implied that he slept with.
Yeah, I mean, the situation is maybe slightly awkward actually being there when it's going on, but like, other than that, like he's actually completely. But she keeps prodding. He's like, "No, Riker, I know you. Come on, Will. I know you're like, feeling something."
Hey, this is me. I'm an empath. Remember, I can tell you're jealous.
Oh dear. Yeah, I got the implication as well. Actually, see when she like stares at this guy in the turbo lift, and she looks over. It's not just your traditional like she gives him the eyes, and then he realizes, oh, she's like looking at me all horny. Like I might be with a chance here. I got the impression she was actually like sort of like with her empath abilities, kind of. Hey, feel this. Feel what I'm feeling right now.
Can she project with her empath abilities?
I don't know if she's ever said she could before, but I was definitely getting this vibe in the scene. It was like it hit him. He was like, oh.
Maybe that's how she was playing it, whether or not she can or not. Who knows? Yeah. Also, there was a point early on where she was talking about her empath abilities with the ambassador. During that scene where they're discussing his own abilities. Mm. And he's like, oh, I bet that's been really useful on her side. She just goes, oh, yeah, it's been critical once or twice. I'm like, no, it bloody hasn't, you lying sack of shit. Never once has that been useful.
Honestly, my favourite reaction in the episode is when they're doing the ritual and they're both holding these stones and his lights up and then he touches her stone with her eyes shut. It's her reaction when he does that. It does play like, obviously at once it's taken effect and she's like under this spell or whatever you want to call it, and she's acting out a character. She's obviously a horny romp, you know what I mean, a horny devil, whatever. But in that moment when as soon as the rock's touching her eyes snap open, it's like he's just harassed her by like grabbing her ass or something like that. The reaction she gives, where she's just in complete shock and like, what did you just do? Like she looks like she's been violated in that moment. And in a way she has, but there was a couple of reactions between her reaction to that and then this guy's reaction in the turbo lift. There was a couple of funny reactions that did kind of make me chuckle a bit. So, I'm looking for the positives where I can find them, because it's not obviously not that good an episode. It's a bit too stupid.
No, it's really not. Well, that's putting it nicely, isn't it?
And then you've got Troi. So there's a lot. Like, this is going to sound a bit lewd to keep bringing this up, but there's a lot of her nipples in this episode. So when Riker goes to see her, she's wearing this dress, and they're just kind of sticking out a bit, right? As you do. When she then shows up in 10 Forward and she gets jealous because the ambassador's talking to this other guy, she comes in this kind of sultry dress and she has a little bit of grey in her hair, which is kind of where you first maybe get, oh, she's aging. This
was the first bit where I was like, oh, there's grey in her hair. And at first I was like, I don't know if it's just because we never see her hair up like that, and that's just usually hidden, or if that's the angle the episode's taking, because it was the very first hint.
So the two things here is, first of all, the reason why I was mentioning the nipples thing is because I'm pretty sure that you could kind of see one of them through this, because it was like a sort of one of those see-through dresses.
Yeah.
And maybe I was imagining it, but it felt like I could see a nipple. Or maybe I was just so bored by what was going on, I was looking for something entertaining, and nipple watch was the best thing I could come up with.
Usually is entertaining, that, to be fair.
But the other key thing here is that the way her hair was up in this dress was very like her mother. Think about what she's usually like. Lwaxana Troi, when she shows up, what she's usually wearing, her hair usually is.
Yeah, I guess.
So for a minute, I wasn't necessarily jumping to, oh, she's aging like that first woman. I was thinking, oh, this is turning her into her mother somehow. And let's face it, her mother is usually chasing after men.
That is usually what her mother does, yes.
So I was getting Lwaxana Troi from this a little bit. And then obviously it progresses and she tries to kiss Riker, but then scratches him and like leaves like big claw marks on the side of his neck.
Yeah, how sharp are her nails?
Yeah, pretty sharp apparently. And
she should file those more often.
Yeah, and I know that it's kind of like, okay, so a lot of this energy that's like making her do this is all the bad energy from the guy, but it does still kind of feel a little bit in the, I don't know, a little bit on the sexist side this episode, where it's like, oh, when a woman becomes unhinged, she turns into this. Like, she's like both slutty but also assaulting and being like a trap and things like that. Like, it feels like a lot of sexist ideas rolled into this. Like,
I'm sorry,
plot.
are you describing a Troi episode? Because that doesn't sound like a Troi episode to me. Those are never sexist.
So, yeah, not a lot to praise necessarily, although like, obviously it does go into some different places, but then Troi suddenly ages a lot and has old age makeup on, and it looks terrible, as it usually does on this show.
Yeah, the ambassador's like, wait, she's dying already? Really? They usually last decades.
Honestly, the most interesting thing about the episode is that they kind of, like, at this point deduced that it's him that's at fault, and he's the reason for it, because Crusher's done an autopsy even though she wasn't supposed to, and yada yada yada. And it's his like, this sort of cold, like, well, I don't really care, I've got like a peace treaty
he's like
deal with.
Great good, isn't it?
Yeah. The way he just sort of fobs it off to Picard's face like it's nothing, and that Picard should just accept it, is the most interesting and villainous thing that I think happens in the episode.
I wish the episode's focused on that thing, that element of it more, because it is very much, he presents his argument, hey, I'm here doing, my job on this planet. If I'm distracted by all those thoughts, or as it turns out, just dead, I can't do that. There's thousands of people dying here every day. Who cares about one person? And, there's this moral argument, there's moral relativism argument to be had there that I'm pretty sure Trek, Next Gen has done a handful of times already.
Yeah, but it also kind of rolls back into the sexist stuff, and maybe in an intentional way in this case, where it's this idea that he thinks it's okay to sacrifice a woman, because it's always women he seems to pick to do this with. And it's okay for them to just be a tool to ensure that he can do his important work, because his work's important and her life is meaningless. So that's more intentional. I don't think that's like an accident. That's there,
right?
But
that's intentional. That's the point they want to get across, is that they're trying to be like, hey, look how sexist this guy is. But the episode just comes off. It doesn't come off as a satire of sexism in that sense. It just comes off as just terrible.
That point is perfectly fine towards the end of the episode, but the rest of it with Troi herself just comes off as, yeah, I don't know. Like, there's scenes where, like, it almost felt like I was watching like a porn parody of Star Trek. The way it was, like, the scenes of her like eyeing people up and trying to talk them into having sex. I was like, this feels like I'm watching a porn parody.
It feels like it wants to be a grimy De Palma movie. But it's just not. It's Star Trek. It's clean, sanitized Star Trek, right?
Yeah, it doesn't really work. Obviously, I was actually disappointed in Troi at the end, because, I mean, honestly, it's a bit lucky that when they figured out a way to, like, break the connection with the ambassador, that Troi magically goes back to her normal age, because the way I saw it is like, well, her body's already aged, so I don't see how that can change, but whatever, I'll roll with it.
Yeah, and also, like, it's only her outer body that's like, her organs are still all aging normally, because we learned that from the autopsy of the other woman, like, yeah, hey, her lungs and heart are like a 30-year-old, so internally she's fine. But
there was a missed opportunity, because the last scene of the episode is it's Troi and Riker, and she thanks him for being by her side no matter what, because she's herself again, and they have a little kiss on the lips. So they've still got a romantic kind of thing going there. And he says, even when you're old and grey, I'll be there for you. And I really thought they missed a beat by not having, after a pause, him go again.
Yeah.
I was like, come on, guys, it was there on the table. It was right there.
Yeah. What else? Oh, I thought one other positive thing I can say about this episode.
Oh, sure.
Because I am desperately trying to find anything. The scene after she scratches Riker and he's talking to Crusher.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, look, I've known her for years. I know her better than I've known anyone else. At times in my life, and who I just saw then, that wasn't Troi. And Crusher is immediately like, right, off we go then. There's no doubt in it. There's no it's just right. Take another word. Like, it comes down to we've seen it before. Like, the bridge crews, like they do trust each other on things like that. And even with Barclay.
I was going to say, but Bartley last episode, that was very much something we praised, or I praised anyway. There's that moment where Picard double checks that he's sure, but then once that happens, he's like, okay, I'm taking your word for it because you're one of my officers and I believe you.
Yeah, and it's the same here where in some ways it's more of a leap because it's like they're like, I know Troi. Troi just does these things sometimes. Almost like they could kind of pass it off as she's just doing whatever. But immediately, like they're like, no, okay, right. If you say this is too far, then it's too far.
But plus, she has some corroboration here in the sense that she thinks there's something fishy about this other woman who's died. So, hearing that this is going on, like I think there's a natural like.
There's also the bit where she tells while in therapy with.
Oh, this is great. Okay, this was actually a funny scene.
And Ensign Janeway, I noticed. So
I laughed at that as well. One. Yeah. Yeah, Janeway, for anyone who's watching the show along with us and doesn't know this, Janeway's the captain in Voyager, which we'll get to, down the line. But I did a double take when I heard that name as well. This is actually a really funny scene where she's in one of her therapy sessions, which, to the show's credit, I feel like it's just this season and last where we've actually seen her have these, where she's actually got her own little like therapy office. I don't think it used to do this. I think this is a relatively recent occurrence.
I will take your word for it, because I don't remember well enough to argue. But
at the very least, I don't think that this set was used before last season.
That's what I was going to say. In support of your argument, despite me not remembering one way or the other, it feels like the sort of thing that a later, okay, we've got budget to build a new set this season. Yes. What do we want? Like, that feels plausible.
Yeah, but anyway, she's sitting giving therapy, and this officer, she's complaining that this guy keeps giving her a hard time, keeps double checking.
Which again thematically ties in with the sexism, right? Yeah.
It's there. The teams are there. But then Troi out of nowhere just goes, maybe he's sick of your whining. And she's like, excuse me? Yeah, you're always complaining. Like, you always come in here and sit and complain. I'm like, Troi, you're a therapist.
This is your job. Listening to people. And again, like, yes, this is. It's so weird, the themes of the episode where, we're talking about how it's supposed to be this, anti-sexism like message, right? And that, this is Troi projecting stereotypical male attitudes, right? Is I don't want to listen to your whining woman. That's essentially what she's saying here, because she's infected with the man's terrible, dark, rubbish thoughts.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't play that way throughout most of the episode. That's not the way it comes across, even if that is the point that they were. I can see what they had in mind. I can see the genuine intent behind it.
And I know some people might suggest that, like, the whole idea of her being this super horny version of herself is because it's actually the idea that the ambassador is this pervert, and it's all of his horniness and stuff that he's transferred into her. And that's fair enough. I understand conceptually how that is, but it doesn't really change the actual scenes we're watching of how she's like being portrayed and what she's doing. And
it's always Troi this happens to, these episodes.
Yeah. So it doesn't matter what the reason is for it to a point, because once at the end of the day when we're watching the scene, it's her in the skimpy dress making the glances and scratching people and doing things in that's very traditional kind of over the top sexist manner. So
right. And as I say, I can feel the genuine intent of the writers when they're coming up with this idea. I don't think it's malicious. Ignorant, yes. Poorly conceived and executed, yes. But I do think it was from a place of genuine intent. It wasn't trying to be terrible, or offensive. Most writers don't set out to be terrible and offensive, to be fair. But this here, I can actually see what they were trying to do. It just didn't go that way.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. We don't even see a lot of it. I mean, I think Date is like there for one of the scenes, but we don't really see him beyond that. Geordi, we might see a glance of him once.
Yeah, I think I remember seeing Worf on the bridge at one point, but
no, Worf's given there's like it's like an aerobics or like yoga class, and for some reason this ambassador's at this class with Troi. This is like before anything's happened, and it's before the proper time that the mother, quote unquote, like chews her out for being like seductive and like trying to like lure her son away from her. But like they're in like almost like white karate like robes. and they're doing like, I guess, Klingon yoga, and Worf gives this class, which I'll buy that he gives a class for something like this. It's a bit calm for Worf's taste, admittedly, but I'll buy that. I do think it's a bit weird that this ambassador, who's only on the ship for this journey because they're taking him somewhere, is like signed up for it. It's like, yeah, I'm going to go and try out this thing.
No, this is definitely trying being like, hey, we got a couple of days till we get there. There's no more prep you can do. Let's go relax. Here, I'll take you to this. We'll you know, it's the same way how, you know, when she signs up like the kids to do like, go take Alexander to the school. I'll take him to the clay modeling. It's basically that. She is the ship's nanny.
This is our super seductive secret way of luring him in. We're going to have a sexy date at Worf's yoga class.
She's like, oh, we'll get all sweaty at the yoga class.
They don't get sweaty. They're like basically doing nothing. They're just holding up their arms occasionally and just sort of like bringing one down slowly.
Yeah, pretty much.
Oh dear.
Much like the episode, it didn't go to a plan.
Yeah. So yeah, very little positive to say. Barring that, we have an early contender for the worst 3 episodes at the end of the season.
Yeah. I would not be surprised if, come the end of the show, this is down there in that worst handful of the show discussion. Like, it's not like the very, very bottom, but it's like it's getting down there. Let's be honest.
I mean, it's pretty bad. I mean, if you said is it in the bottom 3 of all the ones we've seen so far, I don't think so. I don't think it makes the bottom 3.
I don't either, but I can see it in a bottom 10.
Maybe I'd have
potentially, like I said,
yeah.
I'd have to go and compare, but I'm willing to say it's in that range. I'm willing to already go. It's up for discussion.
All right, well there you go. Let's have a look and see what's coming next time.
Like, can't be any worse. So.
Well, no, the next one's apparently pretty good. When I messaged Tara saying this is a complete stinker, she said the next one's a banger. So, and the IMDb rating corroborates this somewhat. So this is called Relics, and we've got a pretty notable guest star, but it looks at the photo here. The Enterprise stumbles upon a Dyson sphere with a ship crashed on the outer surface. An away team finds some systems still powered up, and the chief engineer from the old Enterprise, Montgomery Scott, locked in the transporter cycle.
Dyson sphere. The name's ringing a bell. Correct me if I'm wrong, is that like essentially the artificial sun, where it's like, you know, like a thing around a star, basically?
That sounds vaguely possible. Yeah,
to channel the power, like, you know, to siphon the power of it. I could be wrong, but I'm definitely familiar with the concept of the Dyson sphere. And once we get into the episode and it tells me, I'll be like, oh yeah, this thing. But from memory, that's
what's interesting here is that this is. So it says he was stuck in the transporter cycle. That means that he won't have aged from. Obviously the actor's a bit older, but like this would have been right after the last original series movie, so he'll be about the same as like Star Trek 6, give or take. So yeah, this will be someone. Obviously, that's an excuse so they have to put an old age makeup or anything like that. But so Scotty's on the next
older age.
Oh, true. But Scotty's in the next episode. We're getting a Scotty episode.
That's always nice. I say always nice. I just hope it's better than the Spock episode, in that I don't want it to devolve into just being, hey, look who we've got.
That's true. I mean, we had obviously Bones all the way back. He had the little cameo at the start of the show in the old age makeup. We've had Spock, who's Vulcan, so he's just, you know, if he ages slower, it's fine. We can just accept that he's still this way.
Yeah.
It is kind of fascinating though, that it wasn't until a movie that they got Shatner for Kirk. Like they went 7 seasons and they did like these other characters, but they never got to Kirk. Like Kirk, maybe Shatner refused. Maybe
he demanded too much money. Is the most likely explanation. Or
maybe they just knew they were saving him for like, oh, we're going to do movies hopefully, and that's what we can hold off. We can hold off in Kirk until we've done a movie.
It's possible they were thinking that. Like I said, the more likely answer to me is Shatner wanted too much money, because that seems like a Shatner sort of thing to do.
I guess so, but like, I don't know if Shatner's actually worth that much more. Like, as far as like paying for an appearance, like I'm sure he costs more than the rest of the Trek cast, but he's not like a huge movie star or something like that.
No, he's not. But I think he seems like the type of guy who would leverage the fact that he knew he was the main one, so to speak, that he'd be the big name for them to get. So he's like, you want me, you're paying for it, sort of thing.
Yeah, maybe they tried.
He knew he could command that price, specifically within Trek.
True, yeah. He could definitely do, because they can't get another Kirk, right?
Yes.
I mean, you can do it now. Like Strange New Worlds, which is coming, has a young actor playing Kirk, but that's okay because it's like, in the past, it's an alternate timeline, and Shatner's like 90, so like,
yeah. And I'm not saying Shatner could command that price in anything, but I'm saying he could say, if you want me back in Trek, this is how much it's going to cost you, and he has leverage over that.
Oh yeah, I have no doubt he was paid much less for American Psycho 2 than he was Star Trek Generations. I am willing to bet you, well, the difference in his paycheck. I'll bet you the difference in his paycheck.
Yeah. You just doubled your money, sir.
Oh dear. So there you go. And he went on to be in Third Rock from the Sun not too long after this. He had a regular guest appearance on that show as the Big Giant Head.
Right. So I'm not saying he was above TV work. I'm saying he commanded a price on Trek because he knew he could.
Yeah. It's funny though, because even that, obviously he's not playing Kirk, but the reason why he was wanted for that is because he's like sci-fi royalty. So that was the joke, is this is Kirk playing their alien commander. Yeah. So, it does still get him other related jobs in a weird.
It does, way. But like I say, with that one, if he demanded too high a price, they go, oh, well, we'll just go get someone else.
Yeah, they could literally go get Leonard Nimoy at the time if they wanted to say, hey, do you want to be the Big Giant Head?
Exactly. Whereas here, it's like, you get him or you don't. There is no alternatively.
Yes. Unless his brother, Billy Shatner. Which is awkward because Billy's short for William, but...
Yes, yeah, I was going to say, some real imaginative parents there.
Well, I'm not convinced that every parent who call their son Billy is intentionally meaning it is short for William, because I'm pretty sure on some of their birth certificates it'll just say Billy.
It's more like say Bill than Billy. But
or Bill, yeah.
I agree with your point, but hey, given his age, the parents definitely would have meant that.
Anyway, there you go. That's this week's Star Trek Next Generation. Let us know what you thought of the episode in the comments below. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications. And we get to see Sky next episode, so that's cool. You can catch us on Patreon, patreon.com/MailFuzzTV for as little as $1 per month. And there you go. So thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it. Keep watching Star Trek, and somewhere out there, putting all of his filthy personality and desires and needs into an unsuspecting nearby victim is one Wesley Crusher.